Alien bullies pushed a blind alien girl down the stairs every day until a human boy said, "Enough." Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The gleaming spires of Interstellar Academy Station 7 stood as beacons of galactic cooperation, but beneath their luminous facade, the hallways echoed with the cruel laughter of those who preyed on the weak. Among the many species that called this place home, one small Luminari girl navigated a world of perpetual darkness, unaware that her daily torment was about to end at the hands of the station's newest and most unusual student. The Interstellar Academy Station 7 orbited the neutral zone between three major galactic federations, serving as both a symbol of peace and a prestigious educational institution for the children of diplomats, high-ranking officials, and exceptional students from across the known universe. While most species had been traveling the stars for millennia, humans were relative newcomers, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 70 years ago. Despite this, humans had quickly carved out a reputation as unpredictable but valuable allies. For 14-year-old Ethan Cole, the Interstellar Academy represented both an incredible opportunity and a daunting challenge. As one of only 12 human students among thousands of aliens, Ethan struggled daily to adapt to the different gravities, atmospheres, and social customs of his peers. Standing 5'6" with sandy brown hair that refused to stay combed and bright green eyes that betrayed his every emotion, Ethan was neither the strongest nor the smartest in his class. But as his mother always said, what he lacked in natural advantages, he made up for in stubbornness. "Remember, honey, you're not just representing yourself there. You're representing all of humanity," his mother had said during their last call, her face slightly distorted by the quantum communication delay. She was stationed on a diplomatic mission 3 sectors away, which was why Ethan had been enrolled at the academy in the first place. "I know, Mom," Ethan had replied, trying to hide his frustration. "But it's hard when everyone either treats me like a curiosity or ignores me completely." "Give it time," she'd advised. "True connections don't happen overnight." 3 months into his first semester, Ethan was beginning to doubt his mother's wisdom. He'd made exactly 0 friends and had become something of a ghost, drifting invisibly between classes in the vast, gleaming corridors of the station. It was during his daily journey from xenobiology to galactic history that Ethan first witnessed what would change everything. He was taking his usual shortcut through the Eastern Quadrant's lesser-used stairwell when he heard the commotion, a mixture of harsh, guttural laughter and a softer, more melodic voice pleading in the universal standard language. "Please, I know where I am now. You don't need to help me," the melodic voice said. "But we insist," came a gravelly response, followed by more laughter. "After all, we wouldn't want you to miss a step." Ethan peered around the corner to see 3 Dravik students, a species known for their imposing stature, ridged exoskeletons, and unfortunately, their tendency toward aggressive behavior, surrounding a smaller figure. The Dravoks stood nearly 7 feet tall, their gray-green skin covered in natural armor plating. Their 4 eyes, 2 large main ones and 2 smaller ones set higher on their foreheads, gave them superior peripheral vision, which made them exceptional pilots, but also, in Ethan's experience, made it nearly impossible to sneak anything past them. The smaller figure they surrounded was a Luminari girl. Luminari were known throughout the galaxy for their bioluminescent skin, which glowed with a gentle, shifting light that changed color with their emotions. This particular Luminari appeared to be about Ethan's age, with delicate features and slender limbs. Her skin currently pulsed a rapid yellow-orange that Ethan had learned indicated fear or distress. But what caught Ethan's attention was her eyes. Unlike the typical Luminari eyes that shimmered with an inner light, hers were clouded and dull, their once vibrant glow dimmed to nothingness. She was blind. In one hand, she clutched a small device, an adaptive neural navigator that many disabled students used to help them navigate the complex station. In her other hand, she held a lightweight walking stick that seemed to be made of some kind of crystalline material that faintly resonated with each touch to the ground. As Ethan watched, one of the Dravaks snatched the neural navigator from her hand. "Oops, is this important?" the largest Dravik asked, holding it just out of her reach as she desperately reached for it, her luminescence pulsing frantically between orange fear and red distress. "Please give it back, Kraz," she said, her voice maintaining a dignity that impressed Ethan. "You know I needed to get to class." "Maybe if you asked more nicely," another Dravik suggested with a cruel laugh. "Say, please, mighty Kraz, most superior student of Station 7, have mercy on this worthless luminary." The girl's glow dimmed slightly, a sign of resignation that Ethan recognized from the xenobiology lectures on luminary physiology. "I'll just find another way," she said quietly, turning to feel for the wall. "Oh no, we insist on helping you," the lead Dravik, apparently named Kraz, said. With a swift motion, he slipped behind her and gave her a shove toward the stairs. She stumbled, trying to catch herself with her walking stick, but the third Dravik kicked it from her hand, sending it clattering down the steps. Ethan's heart lurched as the luminary girl teetered at the edge of the top stair. Without thinking, he sprinted forward, but he was too far away. The girl tumbled down the first few steps before catching herself on the railing, her skin now pulsing a deep, painful red. The Dravaks roared with laughter. "Look at that! Mela can fly after all," one of them jeered. "Not very well, though," another added. "Maybe she needs more practice." "What do you think, Kraz?" The leader, Kraz, moved toward the girl, clearly intending to push her again, when Ethan's voice rang out through the stairwell. "Enough!" The single word echoed against the metallic walls as Ethan stepped into full view. He was shaking, partly from fear, partly from rage, but he forced himself to stand tall as three Dravik heads swiveled in his direction, 8 eyes focusing on him with predatory intensity. "What did you say, human?" Kraz asked, his voice dangerously low. Ethan swallowed hard, but didn't back down. "I said enough. Leave her alone." For a moment, there was silence in the stairwell. Then all three Dravaks began to laugh. "The human runt wants to play hero," the smallest of the Dravaks said, though smallest was relative. He still towered over Ethan by at least a foot. Kraz stepped away from the luminary girl, who had managed to sit on a step, her skin pulsating between red pain and a curious blue that Ethan couldn't interpret. "Do you know who I am, human?" Kraz asked, stepping toward Ethan with deliberate slowness. "Some jerk who gets off on pushing blind girls downstairs?" Ethan suggested before his self-preservation instinct could stop him. The other two Dravaks made sounds of surprise and appreciation at the human's audacity, while Kraz's ridged exoskeleton flushed a darker green in what Ethan recognized as a sign of anger. "I am Kraz of the Dravik elite House Vornum," he snarled. "My father commands the Third Fleet of the Dravik hegemony. Who are you to speak to me this way?" Ethan knew he was in trouble. The Dravik hegemony was one of the more militaristic powers in the galaxy, and nobility like Kraz were used to absolute deference. But something inside Ethan, perhaps that stubbornness his mother always mentioned, refused to back down. "I'm Ethan Cole," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "My mother is Deputy Undersecretary for Terran Galactic Relations. But right now, I don't really care about titles. I care that you're bullying someone who can't see, which makes you about the lowest form of life in this station." Kraz's 4 eyes widened in shock, clearly unused to such direct challenge. "You've made a serious mistake, human," Kraz growled, taking another step toward Ethan. "The mistake was yours," came a new voice from the top of the stairs. "When you decided to violate Section 7.3 of the Academy Code of Conduct regarding the harassment of fellow students." Everyone turned to see a tall, slender archivist standing at the entrance to the stairwell. The archivists were an ancient, respected species known for their photographic memories and unwavering dedication to rules and records. This particular archivist was Professor Thale, one of the Academy's most respected instructors of galactic law. "Professor Thale," Kraz said, his tone immediately shifting to one of respect. "We were just helping Mela find her way. She was lost." Professor Thale's compound eyes, which missed nothing, shifted from the Dravox to the luminary girl, Mela, apparently, who was still sitting on the stairs, her skin now pulsing a slow, steady green that indicated calm returning. Indeed, Thale said, his tone making it clear he didn't believe Kraz for a second. And the security recordings of this stairwell for the past 3 weeks would confirm your helpful nature, I'm sure. The Dravox shifted uncomfortably. Ethan realized with a sickening feeling that this hadn't been the first time they'd tormented Mela. The headmaster will be reviewing those recordings, Thale continued, along with today's incident. I suggest you return to your dormitories immediately to await his decision on your disciplinary action. Kraz looked for a moment like he might protest, but Thale's unwavering gaze eventually forced the Dravik to back down. This isn't over, Kraz muttered to Ethan as he passed, quiet enough that Thale couldn't hear. When the Dravox had gone, Professor Thale descended the stairs to where Mela was sitting. Are you injured, Student Melavine? He asked, his voice gentler now. No, Professor, Mela replied, her luminescence shifting to a respectful purple. Just some bruises. My walking stick, though. I'll get it, Ethan volunteered, hurrying down the stairs to retrieve the crystalline rod that had fallen. As he picked it up, he was surprised to feel it vibrating slightly in his hand, emitting a faint, almost musical hum. He returned and carefully placed it in Mela's outstretched hand. Here you go. Thank you, she said, her head turning toward the sound of his voice though her clouded eyes couldn't see him. Her skin shifted briefly to a deep blue color before returning to a neutral lavender. You're the human student, aren't you? I can tell by your voice pattern. Yeah, I'm Ethan. Ethan Cole. I'm Melavine, she replied with a small smile. Though most people call me Mela. Professor Thale cleared his throat. Mr. Cole, while your intervention was commendable, confronting 3 Dravik students alone was extremely dangerous. You're fortunate I happened to be passing by. Sorry, Professor. I didn't really think about it, Ethan admitted. Clearly, Thale said, though there was a hint of approval in his tone. Now, both of you should proceed to your next classes. And Mr. Cole? Yes, Professor? Perhaps in the future, you might consider accompanying Ms. Melavine on her routes between classes, to ensure she arrives safely. Ethan glanced at Mela, whose skin had taken on a faint pink tinge that he didn't recognize from his xenobiology lessons. I'd be happy to, Ethan said. If that's okay with Mela, I mean. Mela's glow brightened slightly. I would appreciate the company, she said softly. And so began an unexpected friendship that would change both their lives, and eventually, the academy itself. Over the next few days, Ethan fell into a new routine. He would meet Mela outside her dormitory in the morning, walk with her to her first class, then reconnect with her whenever their schedules allowed throughout the day. He learned that she was in the year below him, which explained why they didn't share any classes, but their lunch periods overlapped. During those lunch periods, sitting at a table that had once been occupied solely by Ethan, they began to learn about each other. Mela, it turned out, was the daughter of a luminary ambassador to the Galactic Council. Her blindness was not congenital but the result of a rare virus she had contracted as a small child. Most infections can be cured now, she explained as she delicately ate a specially prepared meal designed for luminary nutritional needs. But the Kavari virus attacks the optic nerves and neural pathways too quickly for treatment. By the time they diagnosed it, the damage was permanent. I'm sorry, Ethan said, not knowing what else to say. Mela's skin shifted to a gentle blue. Don't be. I still remember colors and shapes, and luminari don't rely solely on vision anyway. We perceive the world through our luminescence too. We can sense energy patterns, electromagnetic fields. Is that what your walking stick is for? I noticed it vibrates. Mela nodded. It's a resonance rod. It sends out subtle vibrations that bounce back from objects and surfaces. I can feel the patterns through my hand. It's not like seeing, but it helps me build a mental map of my surroundings. That's amazing, Ethan said sincerely. Mela's skin rippled with a sunshine yellow that Ethan now recognized as pleasure or happiness. What about you? She asked. What's Earth like? We learn about it in xenogeography, but I've always wondered what it feels like to a human. Ethan thought for a moment. It's diverse. We have oceans and mountains and forests and deserts. Cities that never sleep and places so remote you can still see all the stars at night. He paused, feeling a pang of homesickness. The gravity's a bit stronger than here on the station, the air a little thicker. And it smells different. Earth has this living smell. Soil and plants and rain. Rain, Mela repeated wistfully. We have something similar on Lamina, but it's more like a luminous mist. My father says Earth rain is heavier. Yeah, it can really pour sometimes. You can hear it drumming on the roof, smell it in the air. I'd like to experience that someday, Mela said. Their conversations continued like this, exchanging details about their home worlds, their families, their experiences at the academy. Ethan found himself looking forward to these talks more than anything else in his day. For the first time since arriving at the station, he didn't feel like an outsider. But the peace couldn't last. A week after the incident in the stairwell, Ethan and Mela were making their way to the central dining hall when Kraz and his two companions stepped out from a cross corridor, blocking their path. Well, if it isn't the human hero and his blind pet, Kraz sneered. Ethan instinctively stepped partially in front of Mela, whose skin had flashed briefly to orange before she controlled it back to a neutral lavender. We're just trying to get to lunch, Kraz, Ethan said, keeping his voice level. Funny thing about that, Kraz replied, his four eyes narrowing. Thanks to you, we've been assigned cafeteria cleanup duty for the next month. The headmaster was very displeased with us. You earned it, Ethan said, unable to keep the edge from his voice. Kraz's ridged exoskeleton darkened. No one has ever humiliated a scion of House Vornum and walked away unscathed. Remember that, human. With that, the Dravox shouldered past them, deliberately bumping into Ethan hard enough to make him stumble. Are you okay? Mela asked when they'd gone, her hand finding Ethan's arm. Fine, Ethan said, though his shoulder ached where Kraz had slammed into him. But I think I just made things worse. Mela's glow pulsed gently. You stood up for what was right. That's never making things worse. Despite her reassurance, the encounter left Ethan unsettled. He knew enough about Dravic culture to understand that Kraz wouldn't let the perceived insult stand. The question was, what form would his retaliation take? The answer came 3 days later. Ethan was in xenobiology class, taking notes on the adaptive respiratory systems of methane-breathing species, when his personal data tablet suddenly projected a holographic image above its surface. The image was clearly from a security recording, showing Ethan in what appeared to be a restricted area of the station, tampering with an environmental control panel. The class fell silent as everyone stared at the projection. Even the professor, a multi-limbed triskelion, paused mid-lecture. Mr. Cole, the professor said, his three-eye stalks focusing on Ethan. Please explain why your device is displaying this. I don't know. Ethan stammered, frantically trying to shut off the projection. This isn't me. I've never been to that part of the station. But the damage was done. Within hours, Ethan had been called to the headmaster's office, where the recording was played again on a larger screen. Headmaster Dorn was a centuri, a species known for their logical minds and long lifespans. His silver-skinned face was impassive as he watched the recording with Ethan. This appears to show you accessing the environmental controls for the aquatic student's habitat, Dorn said when the recording ended. Had these settings been altered as shown, it could have caused severe respiratory distress for the Merlonian students. Sir, that's not me, Ethan insisted. I mean, it looks like me, but I never did this. Dorn's pupil-less silver eyes studied Ethan. The security system identified you with 99.8% certainty. It's wrong. Or it's been tampered with, Ethan said, suddenly understanding. This has to be Kraz. He threatened me last week. Dorn raised a hand. Serious accusations require serious evidence. Mr. Cole, do you have any proof that student Kraz has falsified security footage? A very difficult technical feat, I might add. Ethan slumped in his chair. No, sir. Until we determine the truth of this matter, you will be restricted from all non-essential areas of the station. Your class schedule will continue, but you will return to your dormitory immediately after your final class each day. Is that clear? Yes, sir, Ethan said, feeling a knot of frustration forming in his chest. But what about Mayla Melavine? I walk her to her classes. Ms. Melavine managed her schedule before your arrival, Mr. Cole. She will adapt again, Dorn said firmly. Dismissed. Ethan left the office with a heavy heart. He knew without a doubt that Kraz was behind this, but proving it seemed impossible. Worse, without his escort, Mayla would be vulnerable to the Dravox bullying again. He tried to message Mayla to explain what had happened, but discovered his communications had been restricted to faculty only, another part of his punishment. With no way to contact her, all he could do was hope she would understand when he didn't show up the next morning. That night, lying in his dormitory bed and staring at the artificial starfield projected on his ceiling, Ethan tried to think of a way out of his predicament. If only he could prove the footage was fake. But how? The security systems on the station were top of the line, designed by the archivist species themselves. Unless Ethan sat bolt upright as an idea struck him. The security systems might be nearly infallible, but they weren't the only records kept on the station. If he could find another way to prove he wasn't in that restricted area when the footage showed him there, he might have a chance. The next morning, instead of heading to his first class as ordered, Ethan made his way to Professor Thale's office. If anyone would help him navigate the bureaucracy of the station's systems, it would be an archivist. Professor Thale was at his desk when Ethan knocked, surrounded by floating holographic displays showing what appeared to be ancient legal texts. Mr. Cole, Thale said, looking up in surprise. Should you not be in theoretical physics at this moment? Yes, sir, but this couldn't wait, Ethan said, stepping into the office and closing the door behind him. Quickly, he explained the situation with the falsified footage and his suspicions about Cross. Thale listened silently, his compound eyes unblinking. When Ethan finished, the professor remained quiet for several long moments. What you are suggesting would require considerable resources and technical skill, Thale finally said. Not impossible for a determined student from a powerful house like Vornum, but still remarkably sophisticated. I know how it sounds, Ethan admitted, but I need to clear my name and protect Mayla. Can you help me? Thale's antennae twitched thoughtfully. What did you have in mind? I need to prove I was somewhere else when that footage shows me tampering with the environmental controls. There must be other systems that track student movements, right? Meal card usage, classroom attendance logs, something. Thale nodded slowly. Indeed, there are multiple overlapping systems. The Academy values thorough record keeping. He paused, seeming to come to a decision. Very well, Mr. Cole. I will assist you in examining these records. However, if we discover evidence that confirms your guilt rather than exonerates you, I will be obligated to report it. That's fair, Ethan said quickly. I know I'm innocent. For the next hour, Thale guided Ethan through the labyrinthine record systems of the Academy. They checked classroom attendance logs, which showed Ethan had been marked present in xenolinguistics at the exact time the security footage showed him tampering with the environmental controls. But Thale pointed out that attendance could be falsified by another student answering for him. Next, they examined Ethan's meal card usage, which showed he had purchased lunch in the main cafeteria just 30 minutes after the alleged tampering incident. Given the distance between the two locations, it would have been nearly impossible for him to travel that quickly through the station. This is promising, Thale said, but still not definitive. We need something irrefutable. Ethan thought hard. What about the neural navigator that Mayla uses? Doesn't it keep a log of who she interacts with? Thale's compound eyes widened slightly. Indeed it does. The neural navigators for visually impaired students are programmed to recognize and identify all individuals who come within 3 meters as a safety measure. If you were with Ms. Melavine during the time in question, I was, Ethan said confidently. We studied together in the library before my xenolinguistics class. A few more minutes of searching through the records confirmed it. Mayla's neural navigator had logged Ethan's presence continuously from 1400 to 1530 hours, fully encompassing the time of the alleged tampering incident at 1,442 hours. This, combined with your meal card usage and the physical impossibility of being in two places at once, should be sufficient to exonerate you, Thale said, saving the records to a secure data crystal. I will present these findings to Headmaster Dorn immediately. Thank you, Professor, Ethan said, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. But what about Cross? If he did this? One step at a time, Mr. Cole, Thale cautioned. First, we clear your name. Then we investigate how this falsified footage came to be. By that afternoon, Ethan's restrictions had been lifted, and Headmaster Dorn had issued a formal apology for the hasty judgment. The security footage was confirmed to be an extremely sophisticated fake, though the culprit had not yet been identified. Ethan's first action after being cleared was to find Mela. He located her in the Academy's Arboretum, a vast chamber filled with plants from hundreds of worlds, designed to provide peaceful study spaces for students. She was sitting on a bench beneath a bioluminescent tree from her homeworld, her skin glowing a soft, melancholy blue. Mela, Ethan called as he approached. Her head snapped up, her clouded eyes widening as her skin flashed to bright yellow. Ethan, is that really you? It's me, he confirmed, sitting beside her. I'm so sorry about yesterday. I tried to message you. I know, she interrupted, her hand finding his arm. Professor Thale explained everything this morning. He told me how you came to him for help. Cross set me up, Ethan explained. Created fake security footage to make it look like I was tampering with the environmental systems. Mela's skin darkened with concern. That's much more serious than pushing me around. Falsifying security records is a major offense. I know. Headmaster Dorn is investigating now, but without proof that Cross was behind it. Ethan trailed off, shrugging. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the gentle rustling of alien foliage around them. I missed you yesterday, Mela finally said, her skin taking on that curious pink hue again. The hallways felt emptier. I missed you too, Ethan admitted. I was worried about you. Did Cross bother you while I was gone? No, Mela said. Actually, that's what's strange. I expected them to come after me as soon as you were out of the picture, but I didn't encounter them at all. Ethan frowned. That is weird. You'd think they'd take advantage of my absence. Maybe they're planning something bigger, Mela suggested, her skin rippling with unease. Or maybe they're too busy covering their tracks from the security footage stunt, Ethan countered, trying to sound reassuring. Either way, we'll be careful. Despite his confident words, Ethan couldn't shake a feeling of foreboding. Cross had gone to extreme lengths to discredit him, showing a level of calculation and resourcefulness that Ethan hadn't expected. What would the Dravik try next? The answer came sooner than Ethan anticipated, and in a form he never could have predicted. 2 days later, Ethan was sitting in the Academy's vast library, struggling with a particularly difficult xenomathematics problem set, when a shadow fell across his table. Looking up, he was startled to see Cross standing there alone, without his usual companions. Ethan tensed, ready for confrontation, but Cross' posture wasn't aggressive. If anything, the Dravik looked uncomfortable. Cole, Cross said stiffly. May I sit? Confused but wary, Ethan nodded toward the chair across from him. Cross lowered his bulky frame into the seat, which creaked slightly under his weight. For a long moment, neither spoke. I did not create that security footage, Cross finally said, his voice low but firm. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Right. It just happened to target me, your new favorite person, by complete coincidence. I am not asking you to believe me, Cross replied. I am simply stating a fact. Dravoks do not fight from the shadows. We confront our enemies directly. Like pushing a blind girl down the stairs. Ethan shot back. Cross' ridged exoskeleton flushed darker. That was dishonorable, he admitted, clearly struggling with the words. My father would be ashamed if he knew. Ethan stared at the Dravik in disbelief. This was the last thing he had expected. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Cross leaned forward. Because someone is manipulating events at this academy, and I believe both of us are being used as pawns. What are you talking about? Instead of answering directly, Kraz placed a small data crystal on the table between them. This morning, I received an anonymous message with this attached. It contains footage of me and my clutch brothers tormenting the Luminary girl, compiled from various security feeds over the past month. The message threatened to send this to my father and the Academy board if I did not finish what I started with you. Ethan picked up the crystal cautiously. And I'm supposed to believe you didn't just make this up too? Examine it yourself, Kraz said with a dismissive gesture. The timestamps and verification codes are intact. This is genuine security footage, not fabricated like what was used against you. Ethan inserted the crystal into his data tablet and quickly scanned through the contents. It was exactly as Kraz had described, multiple clips showing the Dravox harassing Mela over several weeks. The timestamps matched periods when Ethan knew Mela had arrived late to classes or seemed unusually subdued. This doesn't prove you didn't fake the footage of me, Ethan pointed out, though he was beginning to have doubts. True, Kraz acknowledged. But consider, if I wanted to discredit you, why would I implicate myself in other wrongdoing? And if I had the skill to falsify security footage so convincingly, why would I not also erase evidence of my actions toward the Luminary girl? It was a good point. Ethan frowned, trying to make sense of it all. If not you, then who? And why? Kraz's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a Dravic expression of uncertainty. I do not know, but I propose a truce between us until we discover the truth. Ethan considered the offer. Every instinct told him not to trust Kraz, but the Dravic's argument made a disturbing amount of sense. And if someone really was manipulating them both, they stood a better chance of finding the culprit by working together. What about Mela? Ethan asked. Any truce between us has to include leaving her alone. Agreed, Kraz said immediately. As I said, my behavior toward her was dishonorable. It will not happen again. Ethan studied the Dravic's face, looking for signs of deception, but Dravic facial expressions were difficult for humans to read. All right, he said finally. Truce. For now. But if this is some kind of trick. It is not, Kraz interrupted. You have my word as scion of House Fornum. Among Dravox, such an oath is sacred. With that, Kraz extended his hand, a gesture he must have learned from studying human customs. After a moment's hesitation, Ethan shook it, feeling the rough texture of the Dravic's exoskeleton against his skin. So what now? Ethan asked as they released hands. Now we investigate, Kraz said, beginning with who had the technical ability to falsify that security footage. Over the next few days, Ethan, Kraz, and eventually Mela, who was initially skeptical of Kraz's change of heart but gradually came to accept it was genuine, worked together to unravel the mystery. They compiled a list of students and faculty with advanced cybersecurity training, cross-referenced it with those who might have motives against either Ethan or Kraz, and systematically investigated each possibility. Most led nowhere, but one name kept surfacing, Vex Talon, a Saurian student in the advanced technical track. Vex was known for his brilliant but erratic behavior and had clashed with Kraz earlier in the year over a high-stakes competitive simulation. More importantly, he had access to the security systems through his work-study position in the Academy's IT department. It has to be him, Kraz insisted as they compared notes in a quiet corner of the Arboretum. He has the means, the motive, and the opportunity. Mela, whose skin was currently a thoughtful indigo, shook her head. It doesn't feel right. Vex is antisocial, yes, but he's never shown any interest in the kind of manipulative games we're seeing. Besides, what would he gain from turning you two against each other? Satisfaction, Kraz suggested. Revenge for his humiliation in the simulation. I think Mela's right, Ethan said after a moment's thought. This feels too elaborate, too patient for someone like Vex. And there's another problem with your theory. How would Vex know about your bullying of Mela? You said that happened in the eastern stairwell, which isn't even on his usual route. Kraz rumbled in frustration. Then we are back at the beginning. Maybe not, Mela said suddenly, her skin brightening with excitement. Ethan, you mentioned the eastern stairwell isn't on Vex's route. Do we know who does regularly use that stairwell? Ethan's eyes widened as he caught her meaning. Someone who would have witnessed the bullying firsthand. Precisely, Melas said. Someone who saw what was happening but chose not to intervene directly. Someone who instead decided to manipulate events to their own advantage. The three of them looked at each other as the same name occurred to them simultaneously. Professor Thale, they said in unison. It made a disturbing amount of sense. As an archivist, Thale had unparalleled access to the station's systems and records. His species' photographic memory and attention to detail would make crafting convincing false footage relatively simple. And as a professor of galactic law, he would know exactly how to cover his tracks. But the motive remained unclear. Why would a respected professor go to such lengths? Kraz wondered aloud. What could he possibly gain? Melas' skin rippled with concentration. Think about it. Who appeared just in time to save me from you that first day, Kraz? Who helped clear Ethan's name when he was framed? Who has positioned himself as the wise mentor guiding us through this mystery? Thale, Ethan said slowly. He's been orchestrating everything from the beginning. But why? They didn't have to wait long for an answer. That very evening, all three received summons to Professor Thale's office to discuss a matter of importance regarding recent events. It's a trap, Kraz said immediately when they met to discuss the summons. Maybe, Ethan agreed. But it's also an opportunity to confront him with what we suspect. We just need to be careful. I have an idea, Melas said, her skin glowing with determination. But you'll both need to trust me completely. When they arrived at Thale's office that evening, the professor was waiting for them, his compound eyes taking in the unusual trio with apparent interest. An unexpected alliance, Thale observed as they entered. How fascinating. You should know, Ethan said boldly. You created it. Thale's antennae twitched slightly, the only indication that the accusation had affected him. A serious allegation, Mr. Cole. Do you have evidence to support it? We know you falsified the security footage to frame me, Ethan continued. We know you've been manipulating all of us. What we don't know is why. Thale regarded them silently for a long moment. Then, to their surprise, he inclined his head in acknowledgement. Impressive deduction, he said. Earlier than I anticipated, but not entirely unexpected. Please sit. I believe explanations are in order. Warily, the three students took seats across from Thale's desk. First, let me assure you that my intentions were never malicious, Thale began. Quite the opposite. I have been conducting a social experiment, one designed to benefit all of you, and potentially the Academy as a whole. Experiment, Kraz growled. You manipulated us like lab specimens. I created situations that would challenge you, Thale corrected. Push you beyond your comfort zones and preconceptions. Consider what has resulted. Mr. Cole, you have found confidence and purpose where before you were isolated and adrift. Kraz, you have confronted dishonorable aspects of your behavior and chosen a more principled path. And Ms. Melavine, you have discovered strength and agency you did not know you possessed. Ethan glanced at his friends, seeing the truth of Thale's words reflected in their reactions. But that didn't excuse what the professor had done. You could have just taught us these lessons, Ethan pointed out, instead of elaborately tricking us. Could I? Thale asked, his compound eyes fixing on Ethan. Would Kraz have listened to lectures on honorable conduct? Would you have found your courage without a genuine threat to face? Would Ms. Melavine have discovered her own resilience without real challenges to overcome? Some lessons cannot be taught. They must be experienced. That's not your decision to make, Melas said firmly, her skin pulsing with indignation. You put us at risk. You manipulated our emotions, our reputations, our very lives at this academy. Thale's antennae drooped slightly. Perhaps you are right. My species tends to take a long view. We live for centuries, after all. Sometimes we forget the immediate impact of our actions on shorter-lived species. What happens now? Kraz asked, his tone wary. That, Thale said, depends on you three. I have achieved my primary objective, creating understanding and alliance between species that would normally remain separate. The secondary benefits, your personal growth, have also been realized. I am prepared to end the experiment and face whatever consequences you deem appropriate. The three students exchanged glances. We need to discuss this, Ethan said. Privately, Thale nodded and rose. I will wait outside. Take as much time as you need. When the professor had left, the three huddled together. We should report him to the headmaster, Cross said immediately. What he did violated dozens of academy regulations. I agree that what he did was wrong, Mela said, her skin shifting thoughtfully. But I can't deny that some good came of it. Look at us, a human, a Dravik, and a Luminari working together. Would that have happened otherwise? Ethan considered this. Probably not. But that still doesn't justify his methods. He hurt people. Hurt you, Mela, to conduct his experiment. Mela's hand found Ethan's arm. Yes, but I'm stronger for it. We all are. And now we have the opportunity to turn this into something positive. What do you mean? Cross asked. Mela's skin brightened with purpose. What if, instead of punishment, we propose a formal program? Something that deliberately brings together students from different species, backgrounds, and abilities to learn from each other. No manipulation, no deception, just structured opportunities for the kind of understanding we've developed. A cross-cultural mentorship program, Ethan said, warming to the idea. That's actually brilliant. It would bring honor to all involved, Cross acknowledged reluctantly. But Thale should still face some consequence for his actions. He should oversee the program, Mela suggested. Under supervision, of course. Who better to guide it than someone who understands the barriers between species so well? After further discussion, they called Thale back in and presented their proposal. The professor listened attentively, his compound eyes widening slightly in surprise. This is not what I expected, he admitted when they finished. It is far more nuanced than I anticipated from students your age. Maybe you underestimated us, Ethan suggested. Just like Kraz underestimated Mela because of her blindness, or like everyone underestimates humans because we're new to interstellar travel. Perhaps I did, Thale acknowledged, and in doing so, proved the very point of my experiment, that we all have preconceptions about other species that limit our understanding. Then you accept our terms? Kraz asked. I do, Thale said solemnly, and I offer my sincere apology for the methods I employed. While I believe in the importance of the lesson, I recognize now that the means were not justified. With that agreement, the four of them took their proposal to Headmaster Dorn the next day. After hearing the full story, including Thale's confession and the students' surprising response, the headmaster agreed to implement the program on a trial basis. The Interspecies Mentorship Initiative, Dorn announced at an assembly 2 weeks later. A groundbreaking program designed to foster understanding and cooperation between the diverse species represented at our academy. Standing on the stage alongside Mela, Kraz, and Professor Thale, whose role had been modified to faculty advisor rather than program director as a consequence of his actions, Ethan felt a sense of pride unlike anything he had experienced before. What had begun as a simple act of standing up to bullies had transformed into something that could change the academy and perhaps even impact galactic relations in the future. As the first participants in the program, 30 students from 20 different species gathered for their initial session, Ethan found himself reflecting on how much had changed in just a few short months. He had arrived at the academy feeling like an outsider, representing a species many considered primitive or unsophisticated. Now he stood as an equal among peers, having proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't technological advancement or physical prowess, but rather their capacity for empathy, their willingness to stand up for others, and their adaptability in the face of challenges. Penny for your thoughts? Mela asked, finding her way to his side with the practiced ease of someone who had long since mastered navigating her environment. Her skin glowed a warm, contented gold. Just thinking about how differently things turned out than I expected, Ethan replied with a smile. When I first saw Kraz bullying you on those stairs, I never imagined we'd end up here. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to say enough, Mela said, her clouded eyes turning toward his face with unerring accuracy. One person willing to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Or dangerous, Kraz added as he joined them, his formerly intimidating presence now a reassuring one. You humans may be physically weaker than many species, but you possess a strength of character that is formidable. High praise coming from a Dravik, Ethan said with a grin. Do not become accustomed to it. Kraz rumbled, though there was humor in his tone. Now shall we begin? These students will not mentor themselves. As they moved toward the waiting group, Professor Thale approached them one last time. I was wrong in my methods, the archivist said quietly, but I believe I was right about one thing. You three represent the future of galactic cooperation. Different species, different abilities, different perspectives, coming together to create something greater than the sum of its parts. Looking at the diverse group of students before them, some with tentacles, some with wings, some with sensory organs humans couldn't even comprehend, Ethan felt a profound sense of possibility. The universe was vast and often dangerous, filled with conflicts and misunderstandings between species that had evolved on worlds light years apart. But here, in this room, they were taking a small step toward bridging those distances. It had started with a simple act of courage, a human boy saying enough to the torment of a blind alien girl. But perhaps that's how all great changes begin, with one person refusing to accept injustice, even when facing overwhelming odds. As the session began and the students started to cautiously interact across the boundaries of species and experience, Ethan caught Mela's eye. Her skin glowed with a deep blue that he had come to recognize as her color for him alone, a color of trust, friendship, and perhaps something more. In that moment, Ethan knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. And somehow, that made the vast, alien universe feel just a little bit more like home. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.